Hello, I'm Diana Shockley, and today on the Pie Method by Diana, we're going to be making a pumpkin pie. And if you're going to mise en place, you're going to need a disc of dough, which I just popped mine in the freezer for just a couple minutes because it was temping out a little too much. But a disc of dough, this is our all butter crust. If you don't have one, see Pie Dough 101, a flaky pie dough masterclass, so you can make your own. We're only going to need half of a disc of dough for this recipe. And then to mise en place, you need 10 ounces of pumpkin puree, 2 whole large eggs, a half a cup of lightly packed brown sugar, light brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of pumpkin spice, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and half a cup of coconut milk. And as you know, I always keep a half cup of all-purpose flour so I can dust my rolling surface and mix it. So to get started, we are going to roll out our disc of dough first. So we'll roll it out, give it a beautiful little crimped edge, and then we're going to pop it in the freezer so it can chill and get really firm. And while it's firming up in the freezer, we can go ahead and make our custard mix, and then that'll be a perfect order. So let's go ahead and get started and roll this out. Okay, so to our half disc, we want to just reshape this guy into a disc. I put the other half, I wrapped it up and put it in the fridge so we can use it for another pie. Okay, so we are going to flour our rolling surface, and we're also going to flour our dough. We do not need to flour our rolling pin. And when we roll, center out, and an X. Always put your pressure from the center out. That way you have even thickness. You want to roll this out to be an 1/8 inch thick, a 1/4 to an 1/8 inch thick. You want the bottom to be thin so that it can bake nice and evenly. If your bottom crust of a double crust fruit pie or just your bottom crust of a custard pie like what we're doing today is rolled out too thick, then you will get that soggy bottom. It'll be too thick to bake throughout and it'll be kind of doughy and kind of soggy, and we don't want that. So as you can see, I'm rolling a lot, center out, center out. And after you do this a few times, I like to flip it over a couple times. Sometimes I sprinkle a little bit more flour if it needs it. This ensures that it doesn't stick to my rolling surface. We're going to trim the edges so it doesn't need to be perfectly round. We just want it to be round-ish. The pie plate that I'm using today is a reusable pie tin, and it's a standard depth 9-inch pie pan. This recipe can make a nice deep dish 9-inch pie, so we might have a tiny bit of mix left over, but we will see. Okay, to transport our dough to the pan, we fold it in half, lay it over the top halfway across the pan, and then you unfold it gently. You let the weight of the dough fall into the pan. You don't want to press it in and stretch your dough because that will cause it to retract when it bakes, causing your pie dough to shrink in. Now we're going to trim it. We want it to be about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch overhang on the bottom of the pie tin. So we're just going to trim that all the way around. I like to just tear it off. You can use some kitchen shears or, a small paring knife to go around, but the less dishes to wash, the better. So, okay, I think we've got a nice good little trim on this. Scraps over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to tuck the ends underneath and just let it rest on the edge of our pan. And we're going to fold this in all the way around the edges. Like that, boop, boop. And we're going to go all the way around. Okay, once you've gone all the way around, I like to just shape it so I have a nice little blank canvas edge to crimp my edges and make the fluted shell. So I like to just pinch my index finger. Everyone has their own method. Some people use their knuckles. I just kind of go down at a diagonal angle and just kind of press around my index finger. So just do that. Whatever you do, commit to doing it all the way around and it'll look beautiful. You can also use the back of a fork if you don't want to crimp it. That gives a nice beautiful edge as well. Okay, so now that I've crimped my edges, I'm going to pop this, like I said, in the freezer because we're going to bake this when it's nice, when the dough is nice and cold. That way it holds its shape. That's another trick to ensure that your pie disc or your pie dough doesn't sink into your pan while your pie is baking. So into the freezer this goes. Okay, now the fun part. This isn't rocket science. We're just going to mix all the ingredients together. The order doesn't really matter in this case. You cannot overmix it. So we're just going to put all the ingredients in here and I'll explain why I do things in the order that I'm doing them. So personally, if I have anything with egg or softened butter, those are the things that I start with first. So I'm going to start by whisking the eggs. So we're going to put the 2 eggs in here. And I just want to break this up really well. So whisking the eggs in first, and then I'm going to add my sugar. And the sugar is nice and thick and it's granulated sandy, and so it's going to really help kind of mix in the egg into the mixture. So this is just the order that I do it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm using a whisk, but if you're using a whisk, don't use a whisk that has really tight little loops. If it's really tight, then all of your mix could get stuck in it because it'll be a little thick, so it might get stuck as you're mixing. So if you're using a whisk with wider, the little wider, whatever those are called, loop-de-loops is better. Okay, and then my coconut milk is going in. This is coconut milk from a carton. You can also use coconut milk, coconut cream from a can, but make sure it's thin and the consistency of like liquid, not like cream. So you can see why I do it in this order. This really ensured that the egg got broken up and there's not like a little piece of egg white or whatever kind of floating around in your mix. If you throw your eggs in at the end, it won't mix very well. All right, now we can go ahead and add our pumpkin spice, our cinnamon, a little bit of salt, vanilla, and our pumpkin puree. Okay, I have all my ingredients in here. I'm just going to whisk this up so I can really break it up and get it really nice and blended. This smells amazing. A whisk really breaks it up, so that's why I like to use a whisk. And these ingredients are heavy enough and there's no heavy whipping cream in here, so just using a whisk to mix it up until it's well combined and well incorporated. This won't incorporate any air into it, so you don't have to worry about that part. And there you have it, a perfect pumpkin pie mix. So let's go ahead and get our shell out. Okay, he's nice and firm. I like it. Okay, to this, we are just going to pour our pumpkin mix directly into an unbaked shell. All right, looks like this mix is perfect for this size of a pie. You know, I like to scrape, so we're going to get as much of it in there as we possibly can. And this is just the perfect amount for this size pan. And I'm just going to make sure that it kind of spreads out. I'm not going to do anything with it with this, actually, just kidding. I'm going to take a little spatula and just kind of flatten that little part just in case it wants to show. Okay, perfect. Sometimes I really like that little loop-de-loop at the end. Okay, so this is going to go into a preheated oven at 350 degrees. I'm going to bake it for about 20 to 25 minutes. I'm going to kind of see if it's starting to toast, starting to cook. So obviously when it's fresh, it looks wet, shiny. Um, it's unbaked, it's raw. So as it starts to bake, the top of the mixture will kind of turn like will be kind of more like a matte finish. It won't be as shiny. And then what you want to see to make sure that your pie is done with our recipe, this is a tip for this recipe, is that the center will souffle up. So when the center has souffled a little bit, then your filling is cooked. And you just want to make sure that your crust is cooked all the way as well. And that's why you want to roll it thin. And then you can see if it's nice and golden brown on the edges. So typically your cue is that doming of the middle. Sometimes it'll souffle on one side, and that just means you need to rotate your pie halfway through, which I am accustomed to do. So always halfway after the first 20-25 minutes, I'll do a rotation. And then if I think, depending on your oven, all ovens are different. If your oven runs a little hot or has some hot spots, rotating it more than once might be ideal. But you'll know if you have like some areas on top of your pie that are starting to toast up a little bit and kind of darken and brown a little. That's okay. It's just the nature of the pie. That's what happens with custard pies sometimes. But with the pumpkin pie, we don't want to see too much of that. And we definitely don't want to see too much of that in an uneven way. So if you see that it's starting to brown, starting to get a little toasty in some spots, you can turn the temperature down. So I'm going to turn my temperature down to about 330, 335 degrees. And then I'll keep rotating it, keep an eye on it. Remember, you don't want to open your oven too much though. If you have to open it, be quick, because every time you open your oven, you're adding about like 5 to 8 more minutes of baking time, because it just loses all its temperature and it basically has to preheat all over again. So with that said, all that educational stuff, 350 degrees, and in goes our pumpkin pie. Okay, our delicious pumpkin pie is out of the oven, and I wanted to show you what it looks like. So once it's cooled, it does come back down. So as I mentioned, you know that it's fully done. You know that it's fully done when it souffles a little bit and it no longer has that like super shiny, like wet look over the top. So we can jump over to that clip really quick and you can see. So it's kind of toasting around the edges, it's a little souffled. It also actually forms like a little skin on top. And so if you are brave and you're going to cover it with whip, you can tap the center at the top. And if it's tacky and it sticks to you, then it's not done. So you should be able to gently tap the top and it not stick to you. I obviously did that a little too soon on mine, but that's okay. This one's really delicious. So we're going to cut a little slice out of it. This pie came out about 45 minutes ago. I let it sit at room temperature for about 10-15 minutes. Then I popped it in the fridge. So it's not 100% chilled, but it is already fully set. So I'm just going to cut a little piece out of it and we can put it on a little plate so I can show you what the center looks like when it's fully done. It's a nice little petite piece right here. Look at this gorgeous slice. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So that is a perfectly cooked, perfectly baked pumpkin pie. And I'm going to give it a little taste. Okay, I went to get my fork. And I don't always do a little taste test on the pies because I usually have my little toddler around here and she wants to have the first slice. So she's not here right now. And ooh, I love that I can actually see the bottom of the pie. Okay, I'm getting really crazy here. But I want you to see that baked all the way through. No soggy bottoms here. I just couldn't help myself. I definitely wanted to taste this. That's the first pumpkin pie of this season for me. Oh my goodness. So hopefully you make one too. Make one for Thanksgiving, for your family and friends. It'll be a hit, I promise. So subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss out when we post more delicious holiday treats. This could be you. This could be you right now.